I used to be seeking something that I just couldn't get to. It might have been like a status, or oh, I'm gonna be happier. And I just wanted to be more me, I think, and didn't know it. So, you talk about learning and becoming, and my job is not to be an acceptable version of me, but to be an exceptional version of me. And that fills me every day.
Welcome to the Midlife Fulfilled podcast. Are you over 40 and ready to truly thrive? Well, on this podcast, we go deep on ways to thrive across the 5 pillars of midlife: health, fitness, career, relationships, and legacy. I'm Bernie Borges, midlife advocate, life coach, and your host. Subscribe now and get ready to thrive. Heather Johll, welcome to the Midlife Fulfilled podcast, a vulnerable conversations episode.
Hey, grateful to be here. Thank you, Bernie.
Thanks for joining me today, Heather. Well, Heather, let me tee up our conversation again. It's a vulnerable conversation episode. I really enjoy these conversations so much, and I know a little bit about your story, so looking forward to really getting into it. You've had a storied career. You've got over 20 years experience in operations leadership. Currently, you're the vice president, reporting to chief accounting officer at Ascension Health. You're the lead for outsourcing transformation and accounting and reporting. Previously, you were a senior vice president of operations for a company in the business process outsourcing industry, also known as BPOs. So you've had a storied career. You've lived in multiple countries. You've always been driven by passion and delivering excellence and results, but you've also reinvented yourself. And that's really what I want to discuss is that journey, that process, like the why and the how of your reinvention. So Heather, start wherever you want to start.
Sure. So I'll start with the kind of the spoiler alert here. I was 385 pounds 5 years ago. And I'm, by the way, 145 pounds effective this morning at like 8:01 a.m. when I
Wow.
checked to see where I'm at. And that could be the story here. That could be the whole conversation. But what I've learned in this process is this journey of learning and becoming. What I thought was going to be, oh my gosh, I need to lose some weight. I'm sick and it's hard for me just to be, turned into, oh gosh, I need to go to counseling. Where is my physical health at? Where's my financial health at? Spiritual health, mental health, and all of that journey of learning and becoming. I think it landed us here today.
Okay. So you said that was 5 years ago.
Hmm.
That's where you were compared to where you are now. So
Correct.
let's unpack that journey a little bit. How did you approach it? I can't imagine, Heather, that you did it all by yourself. I can't imagine that there weren't loved ones and liked ones and just other people in your life that were a part of that journey. So maybe you can begin to unpack that a little bit.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I was in the BPO industry for a solid 20 years and had a very successful career. Quite honestly, my weight never defined me. My intellect and my drive to be better, to learn, to overcome has always been present. I think it's been present since I was a little kid. I think I learned that just growing up and being a farm girl in Wisconsin. But if I were to go back and capture the change, I recall being sitting in my office in Fort Lauderdale, and I had a great job, great mentors, lots of fantastic leaders that worked with me, for me, next to me. And I thought, is this it? Like, is this what I'm doing for the rest of my life? Or is this all I can do? Was probably the greater question. Was like, am I just going, and I'm not saying just, because BPO work, business process outsourcing, is a very challenging, very rewarding career. You get to wear many hats, and you get to live inside of many cultures, and you get to lead fantastic people. But I thought, is that it? Or can I do more? And as I was sitting there, and I was, quite frankly, physically diabetic, high blood pressure, all the things. And I thought, what if I just changed everything? What if, where would I go? And when you talk about learning and becoming, I wanted to become healthy, and I wanted to feel good when I woke up in the morning. That was my initial goal. And I realized that the life I was leaving, I would have to abandon that life. And I firmly believe that to step into your future, it costs you something. It costs you the current you. And but it's not a regretful thing. The current you has to be deconstructed in order to move into the next phase of self and growth. And so I thought, well, you know what? I want to work in healthcare. I want to be healthy, right? I mean, it's in the name, and I'm, I don't have a healthcare background. Quite transparently, I don't have a finance background, even though I work in accounting and reporting. But I found Ascension Health. I looked them up. I looked up their mission. I looked up how they do business, what they do. And also, by the way, it was in Indiana, which is, I have some sisters here, I have some family that's just across in Wisconsin, just a drive away. And I thought, why not? And so I started applying for jobs there. And I was just very, very lasered in on the fact that I was going to leave BPO. So I left. I left BPO. I left my career. I'm certain by now, had I stayed in BPO, I probably would have been a COO, a CEO, if I would have been alive. Right. I mean, I don't know what my health habits would have brought for me. I know things were very at a very dangerous kind of space for me with my obesity, but I found this guy. Lee Coulter was his name. I'm going to give him credit for this. He saw something in me, and there was a position that was available, and I applied for it, and I got it. But I was unemployed in the meantime. I don't know how many people at Ascension Health probably realize that. I know in the BPO world, I kind of shocked some folks. I probably left a little bit of, I don't know. I don't think I would feel good if my leader left suddenly, but I think it's what it took. And in reflecting back on it, I wouldn't change a thing about that moment where I was like, no, I'm done with this.
Okay. So there's so much running through my mind, but I'm going to hone in on one question, Heather, because it has to do with your last point. You left. And what did you say to the people you worked for you, all your colleagues? What was your message to them around you leaving?
Told them I couldn't do it anymore.
Okay. So you were totally transparent.
And there were a couple people, a couple leaders, Lori that I worked with, who I considered a mentor, that I was particularly transparent with. And I was sad. This was not me beating my chest and saying, I'm going to show you, because the only person I was looking at was the one in the mirror. It was emotional. It was sad. I ended up in my sister's basement, and I realized through those conversations and through that mourning process that I was unwell. And because, I mean, if I could project manage this, not that I'm a phenomenal project manager, like probably there was another way to get from there to here. Maybe I could have clicked maybe years earlier and done something, but that's not how life went. And so, yeah, I mean, I just ended up where I ended up, I think.
Okay. So, Heather, that my 5 pillars are health, fitness, career, relationships, and legacy. And there's a reason health is the first one. because health is both physical and mental. And
Mhm.
if we struggle with our health, then all the other pillars are going to struggle. Every aspect of our life is going to struggle. And also, when it comes to health, there are some things that are not within our control, and then there can be things that are within our control. So, where I want to go next in our conversation is to this point where you applied at Ascension Health, and this gentleman, I think you said it was a gentleman, saw something in you. Share a little bit about that conversation. What did he see in you? What did you share with him in your story?
I think what Lee saw in me was one of, I think he saw a pretty vibrant personality. Like I show up in a way that I feel like I make a room a little bit warmer.
You do?
And also I think he saw my intellect. I think he saw, hey, she's smart, she thinks differently, and we need something new. And so I feel like, listen, it was like a 7-hour interview process. They didn't, and by the way, no food. It was just me in this conference room. It was Halloween, so people were in costumes. You want to talk about a bizarre interview process, and also not what I expected. I was very dressed up, but yeah, I think that what he saw in me too was just this person that wanted more. I think I don't think I know that he felt that because he hired me as somebody who was different from everybody else.
Did he also share with you his thoughts on sort of the personal side of your story, not just your qualifications, because that's part of what I just heard you explain, Heather. Like you had some really compelling qualifications, but what about the personal side of the story? Was that in play at all?
When I first interviewed, no, but shortly after I got the job, it certainly was.
How so?
It, so I was hired in December, and then within six, I blew out my knee in January. That was fun. Um, and then I ended up in a knee replacement surgery, and I almost died. That was in June. So we're 6 months into employment, into a position in a place I've never been, into a discipline I haven't worked in. And I had knee replacement surgery, which is a whole thing, especially at the weight I was at. But that night after surgery, I knew something was wrong. 16 pulmonary embolisms. You can't make that up. Statistically speaking, 25% of the time, the first symptom of a pulmonary embolism is death. I had 16. And
Hmm.
so obviously, I'm in intensive care. I have a brand new knee. I'm still 385. I can't breathe. I'm in and out of kind of consciousness, and I'm 46. Yeah, I would have been, yeah, 46. And they had to move me into a nursing home. Now, at that point, here I am. Honestly, Lee and the team at Ascension Health, there was my CFO, Liz, and some other folks that were involved in this, my team, they could have just said, not a good hire, right? But they didn't. And I think that ties back to what I said before. I chose a place I wanted to go work that had a mission that was meaningful. That I felt like, oh, well, oh my gosh, I feel like this is a fit for my heart. And so they worked with me. And I was sitting in a nursing home. You cannot, unless you've been there, which God forbid, sitting in the nursing home. And I said, this is it for me. I said I wanted to get healthier. Today's when it starts. I'm done because I'm going to die. And that isn't my story. My story will not end like this. My story will be one that's beautiful. And so, you think about, obviously, right? I have this budding career, but to your point, unless you have your health, you can't pour into your career, your mental wellness,
Hmm.
spiritual wellness, legacy. where's the legacy if it ends in a nursing home or what? And listen, I'm not saying there's lots of folks I love in nursing homes, but like I'm 40, there's no reason for me to be there.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Not at 46.
not at 46. And and so, to some degree, I applied some of the discipline, heart, and just the stick to itiveness. I don't know that that's a word, but that I put into my career. It was like,
Okay.
no, I'm on my way now. I'm doing something different.
Okay. Now, the weight loss, we haven't spoken a lot about that. And I'm not going to ask you to give us a tremendous amount of detail on that. But in the context of your journey, Heather, your story, I'm just wondering because the weight loss was very significant. We're not
Mhm.
talking 50 pounds.
Right.
You lost a couple hundred pounds. I mean, that's really, really, really significant. And so, what I want to know in the context of your overall story is that's a big achievement. Not only is it good for your health, but it's also an accomplishment. And,
Mhm.
when I talk about fulfillment, which I kind of do all the time,
Right.
I say that fulfillment is tied to achievement, right? You achieve something, there's fulfillment in that, and it's usually immutable. Nothing can take that away. And in your case, this significant weight loss is an example of that achievement, which I'm sure has given you fulfillment. Nothing can take that away. So, how does that fit into your overall story?
So when you think of the journey that I've been on, just overall, uh, I think what I unlocked, you kind of level up, go to you unlock a level and you figure something else out, was that, golly, at first I started like, well, I should be walking more. I probably should eat some more vegetables. The truth was I needed to go to counseling. The truth is the pieces of me that were broken weren't going to be healed inside of a gym. They weren't going to be healed because I joined Weight Watchers. Now, the gym, Weight Watchers, sleep, vitamins, water, all the things, those have to be in place. But we know that all of us know what we should do on any given day. We understand the things that make us have a longer life, but we don't choose those things, and that's because of our mental health. And so I started counseling. And when I say I started counseling, like all in. And, sometimes I feel like when you're on your path and the doors are opening, the right people just keep showing up. And the right counselor showed up for me. Laura, my counselor, Laura, guys, going to see her next week. She was the right person that understood me, because here you have a high achiever who's high achieving in ways to hide the broken parts. And her and I were able to build a plan. And really, I was able to get vulnerable with her. You don't sit at an executive table at work and tell people all the traumas that happened, right? You sit at an executive table and you present things and you look at the vision and the transformation and you focus in on the wins. And so I was so conditioned to do that career wise that I never spent the time just being like, oh, golly, that part of me is hurt. That part of me is unhealed. And I didn't have people to. I mean, I'm my best friend. Like, she knows all the things about me, and she's taught me some fantastic lessons along the way. But there was no formal place to do that. And quite honestly, mental health, while counseling, and I am the hugest. I mean, you've got to invest in your mental health, and that lends to your spiritual health, and that lends to your physical health, and in your career and your relationships
Hmm.
strengthen. Some of them go
Yeah.
away, right? But yeah, I think that the key to all of it, people say to me, what do you do to maintain? I eat a lot of edamame beans and stuff like that, but I don't think that's the secret. I really think I've invested in me, in my heart.
Okay. So, something that you said a few times, Heather, that I want to come back to and kind of pick up on, and that is that you redefined or re-understood the problem that you were addressing. It wasn't the weight. You've mentioned a few times that there were other things broken in your life, and you had the wisdom, whether you got that entirely on your own or maybe through some counseling or combination of the two, you had the wisdom to understand that and then go tackle that. Go
Mhm.
tackle the things that were broken. And would it be accurate for me to say, Heather, that you tackled that either before or in parallel with the weight loss? In other words, you didn't ignore that and just focus on weight loss. You focused on the things that were broken, maybe in a priority,
Mhm.
or along with the weight loss, or maybe before the weight loss. I'm not quite sure.
All together, all at once,
Okay.
all fronts. So as I was losing weight, I was gaining and healing pieces of me mentally.
Okay.
So if you look at the journey of, we talked about 2020, where everyone was, in the pandemic eating. I was doing something very different, right? I was going to counseling. I was relearning how to eat. And listen, and you think in counseling, I wasn't talking about, oh my God, I want to eat 20 cheeseburgers. We addressed that. That was a part of the process, right? And trainers and all the things. So no, I would say that from a priority perspective, it was all a priority. And my experience in my career taught me that sometimes everything is a priority. And so you have to address all the fires at once. And
Now,
so
Heather,
I think that helped me with this.
were you at that weight in your 20s and 30s?
No, I mean, it was gradual. It was gradual. And I would say that in my 30s, listen, I was in a very bad and dangerous marriage. And I think that part, which most people, you know what, I'm telling you right now, someone at in my current job is listening to this saying, she was married, right? Because I I buried that piece of me.
Sure.
And I do think that as I look at that abusive marriage and escaping the domestic violence, and it was severe, it was life threatening.
Sure.
I ate, and
Yeah.
so I don't think I was always. I was never. I don't know when I was this weight. Fourth grade.
Okay.
I have no idea, but yeah.
Part of the reason that I asked, Heather, is because, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was somewhere around age 45 or 46, as I'm hearing you share
Hmm.
your story, that you had this commitment to change.
Hmm.
So that's right smack in the middle of our, what I call midlife seasons, multiple
Yep.
seasons. And so that's why I asked you if you were that weight in your 20s and 30s. I didn't know about,
Uh huh.
what you just shared about, that marriage and
Uh
the
huh.
abuse and all that. I'm sorry you experienced that. Um, but I think that's why we're having this conversation, because the people who listen to this podcast are in this age demographic, and we all have something that we've experienced in our lives.
Yep.
It's all unique to each of us, but it's a bit of a roller coaster, right? It's up and down, up and down, up and down, sometimes up more, sometimes down more. But you sharing this journey that you've been on. So give us a sense for where you are now. And before you answer that, let me tell you what my perception is. I haven't known you very long. I met you recently. We were introduced by a mutual friend. And my perception is that you are full of joy. You are absolutely the person who lights up the room when you walk in. I would not know your past about, being 200 pounds heavier. Um, you just have this very positive, contagious spirit about you. So, with those accolades, give us a sense of kind of where you are now.
So I think, where I'm at now is I'm in a very like, I feel full. I'm excited to wake up every day. It's a joke because sometimes I'll wake up and it's only 4 a.m. and I'm like, dang it, why can't it be 5 yet? Like I usually get up at 5 and it drives a lot of people in my life crazy because they're like, why is she up so early? It's because I'm excited to be up. And look, I Look at my hair. I chopped it off and gave myself a mohawk, right? Why? Because it's more fun and it feels free and I feel free. And I think I used to be seeking something that I just couldn't get to. It might have been like a status or, oh, I'm going to be happier. And I just wanted to be more me, I think, and didn't know it. So, you talk about learning and becoming, and my job is not to be an acceptable version of me, but to be an exceptional version of me. And that fills me every day. And so, the things that I get fired up about and the fun, I was out shooting baskets a couple days ago. I was at the basketball court shooting, and my shoulder got sore. I had some tendonitis in my shoulder, right? 51. But I was so happy. I was like, oh my gosh, this is just a fun afternoon. And I love that. And I'm happy. I am happy now, but I don't seek happy. I seek my moments, my joy, my vibe, my people. And one of the best lessons that my best friend Mary taught me, and I tell everybody this story. One day I was really downing the former version of myself. Oh, what was I doing? I slept in and I used to do this. And she's been my best friend since I was 18. And she said, don't you dare talk about her like that. Don't. That's my best friend. And I loved her too. And it's hard for me not to get emotional about that. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's still me, And I wasn't where I am now, but I was on my way. And so I'm grateful. And I don't think that a relationship or any single thing defines me. The scale doesn't define me, my title, my biggest failures, the people I've there's betrayal in life. You hurt people you love. I'm just this whole big moving forward journey in life. I'm this person that does things right and does things wrong. And I love that I learn. I love that. And so thank you for the kind things that you said about me, and just know that I work on those things every day. I am intentional. I'm intentionally joyful.
That's wonderful. And I love what you said, Heather, when you said you don't want to be an acceptable version of you. You want to be an exceptional version of you. I think that is fantastic. And I think that is very inspiring, especially with the journey that you've been on. And, look, you're still young. You're in your 50s. You have a lot of midlife seasons still ahead of you. And you've got a wonderful perspective that many of us don't have. I certainly haven't experienced, similar health issues like you have. I haven't spent, time in intensive care or nursing home like you have. So every one of us has a unique journey.
Mhm.
And the fact that you're willing to be vulnerable, share it with me and my listener here on the Midlife Fulfill podcast, it's really wonderful. I really appreciate it. Heather, where can people connect with you online and just kind of get into your world if they want to do that?
Absolutely. You know what? Go to my LinkedIn. Go to my LinkedIn. You know what? You can observe me on Facebook too if you want. I'm a full public profile, and all the things that make me who I am. I don't hide any of it. So I'd be happy to connect. I'm happy to share my story. I love to connect with men, women that are like, I'm stuck, because no, you're not. You're in your journey. You're just sitting a little still right now. And I love to share my story, because I think that, well, that's what we owe humankind. And to move forward. So thank you so much. This was a great conversation. I'm so happy that we did this. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Heather. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to continue it. So until then, see you again soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Bye-bye.